Right, good afternoon, everyone. Just waiting for Megan to join in here. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We're trying out a new day and time, so hopefully this works better with everyone's schedule. Okay. Hello.
Hi. Hi.
All right. So it looks like we have a couple people watching. We're trying out a new time. We were previously doing these at, we were doing them at noon last week and then I think 2 p.m. And so we're trying to find the best time for everyone. Hopefully this is it.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like there was a few people popping up on it.
Cool, so I guess we can get started. I'll just introduce myself really quick. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Felicia Garcia. I'm the Curator of Education at SAR's Indian Arts Research Center. And today I'll be chatting with Meghann O'Brien, who was our 2019 Dobkin Fellow. All right. It's so nice to see you, Meghann. Do you want to take a few words to just introduce yourself really briefly?
Yeah. I guess, yeah, thank you for having me a part of this program. It's exciting, all these new things that are happening online with all that's going on in the world. But yeah, my name is Meghann O'Brien. I'm working out of Vancouver right now. And I'm from the community of Alert Bay, but have Haida and Kwakwaka'wakw ancestry. And I'm a Chilkat and Ravenstail weaver. I also practice basketry making. And I guess I've, in the last few years, become involved a bit in kind of like little bits, I guess, of explorations into new technologies and the world of like Indigenous fashion as an idea. And now just seemingly recently some opportunities for possible curatorial work, which is exciting. So, yeah.
That is exciting. So can you talk a little bit about any projects that you have been working on since your fellowship at SAR?
Yeah, I guess earlier this year I was preparing a piece that I've wanted to do since like 2010. So it's been on my mind for a long time, and it was meant to be a companion piece to the robe that I wove in 2014 called Sky Blanket. And both works were based off of working with mountain goat wool, and it seemed like a good opportunity. I was preparing it for the Toronto Indigenous Fashion Weeks. They were going to have a more of a curated show as a part of that week. So I was I wove a t-shirt out of the mountain goat wool that I spun, and it was kind of meant to be, at the time I was considering it as a question about like what makes an item or an artwork of value. Is it the materials it's made from or the form that it takes? And yeah, so I finished that one earlier this year, and not like super happy with how it turned out, but it was kind of in my head. I pictured it as a very like ethereal, very, very light thing, but because I used some Chilkat materials, there's more density with the cedar bark that's used in the warp.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's done, and I had a bit of a pause. I was supposed to be. It was a bit of a shock to my system because I had a whole year planned out of pretty extensive travel and a lot of research this year. So I was supposed to be in Washington and New York. I got a Smithsonian Artist Research Fellowship, and that was supposed to be completed by December of this year, but they're now extending it because of the border closures, and the Smithsonian's research centers is all closed up. And so we're just rebooking that. So that was like two months of research, and then there was a trip with the McCord Museum and the Kay Brownlee split apart throughout the year, and that was to research basketry with some weavers that some spruce root weavers that I really respect and admire. So that was canceled, and then there was supposed to be a show in Switzerland. So I took a bit of time kind of processing what I wanted to do, and I find that some of the motivations I have around weaving, like what really grounds the regalia aspect of the work, has been ceremony and its use in the big house and with our people and the place it has. So just the environment of the world that we're in now, when gathering with large groups of people isn't possible, was really like kind of shattered that foundation in a way. And I found myself back into my work with basketry. So I've been working on that lately, and yeah. And just preparing, I guess, some stuff for possible shows. I mean, it's all in flux, but some bigger shows that are on the table for Northwest Coast work as a whole, kind of partnerships between different museums on the coast here. And I'm just kind of waiting on that being solidified so we can start working. Yeah. So, yeah, a bunch of stuff.
Wow.
I guess, yeah, lots going on.
Yeah.
I didn't even touch. There's like there's other projects too. Like a lot of things like that were supposed to happen have now gone online. And a couple of years ago, we did the digitization of Sky Blanket for use in the Border X shows. So that one's been there, and there's supposed to be a show at the Haida Heritage Center in Skidegate called Dark Skies. So we started talking about ways to reimagine that work that we created and build on it. But right now it's just looking like it's going to be online for the time being because that center is closed. And so I've been working with the same group as before at Making Culture Lab. And yeah, really enjoying that process of.
Yeah, so has your practice been altered or modified as a result of the pandemic and having to work remotely? Have you found like new ways of doing things or of communicating and working with other people?
No, my practice is pretty solitary. So the big change for me was having my husband around more. So that's a positive one because I'm usually working from home. So we're in my studio space now, which is just a room in our house. And yeah, I guess that work, because in 2018 when we did that Sky Blanket digitization, it feels like it was a bit, so I feel a bit more prepared because of that experience and because of that process and because I already have people that I'm able to work with. So it's been a bit of an easier transition in that regard. That piece is able to be shown in more than one place at one time, which is, I think, a positive and doesn't require any shipping or handling of the work. Yeah. And I mean, I've had my own things. There was a show supposed to be in Shanghai that they wanted to have a piece for, and I just didn't feel comfortable shipping it with, like, this was like back in March or April or somewhere around there. And it was just really uncertain about, I didn't want to have a physical artwork stuck in transit somewhere, or it just seems so strange and uncertain. But I've worried a lot more. The impact I've felt is kind of in the best of times economically, like the commercial or market side of art creation feels fragile to me with like, because weaving in Northwest Coast art and Indigenous arts feels like it's a niche within, like a very small niche within an already niche market. And there was a period a few years ago where a few of the really serious collectors that I knew about passed on. And so it felt probably a lot more fragile than I realized when I embarked on kind of my path with things. And so now with this, part of my thoughts were like, who in this kind of world is going to be wanting to buy art? It felt like much more of a necessities thing, but I think that's been proven wrong. There's some people are doing really well throughout this time.
Yeah, it's been really amazing to see, like talking with all of the local artists here in New Mexico who are doing online markets, and how people are able to make connections with like collectors from other countries that maybe would have never made that connection in person. So yeah, it's kind of a challenging time, but it seems like, yeah, there's a lot of hope still, and people are still supporting the arts, but yeah, it's definitely tough.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't really know what's going to happen next. I miss coming down to Santa Fe. That's all I
I
know.
know. But, so you mentioned that you're in your studio. Do you have any works in progress or materials that you might be willing to share with us?
Yeah, I can flip this around, I think. And this is my cat.
Oh, so sweet.
Just checking something out in the corner. So I've got, this is the basket that I've been working on off and on. So it's some of the materials. I usually get it wet before I start working on it. So all the pieces are created, I guess. This is like a small bit of the exterior of the bark. So it's split down into, all these sections in here. So small pieces for making these pieces with, and then the weavers with. So that's a pretty long process for preparing those materials before you start weaving. And there's that one. And then I've got just some materials, the Chilkat spinning. So the yellow cedar bark cedar bark's the same as this cedar bark, except it's been kind of steeped in very hot water, simmered to extract the pitch, and then it's spun with wool.
Okay.
So just those two, and then got this is the T-shirt.
Oh wow, it's beautiful.
Thanks. And that's one of the first baskets I made with my teacher Carrie. And yeah, I think that's about all I've got going on right now. But
So what's it like having your studio be in your home? Is that something that you really appreciate, being able to like transition from like your work to personal life, or do you find it all to be just very seamless?
yeah, I enjoy it being at home because sometimes I feel like working at odd hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I like having the flexibility to not have to leave the house
Right.
in that regard. And I really love my pets. So I love being around my cats. And it's funny because they've been present for all of my wool weavings. So every single piece that I've made that's like woven with wool, my cats have been around, and it's super cute. They I don't know, they love smelling things, so they'll come up to a piece, and they love it when I work. Like they don't sit with me very often, but as soon as I'm weaving, they'll come and sit right on my lap or come over and lay beside the loom.
Oh,
And yeah, it's really sweet. And I think like they're such like intuitive creatures. I think there's some really good energy associated with weaving that they like. And
right. And I'm sure
yeah.
they appreciate having you, you and your partner both at home during all of this. I know my cat is really loving all of the extra attention.
Oh yeah, your cat's so sweet.
Yeah, he's here
Yeah.
somewhere, but
Aw.
oh, Ian says hello and that he loves your cats.
Aw.
Yeah,
Say hi back.
for those of you who don't know, Megan's cats traveled with her to Santa Fe and also participated in her residency. So it was
Yeah.
really sweet to have them on campus.
Yeah, it's part of why I didn't go down to the studio too much. I ended up working from the residence instead of the studio for the most part of my residency because of all those reasons. I felt very creeped out walking around at night.
Right.
And also because of the cats. Like, and I love it when I've got like an indoor outdoor space, and that residence was perfect for it. You just have the doors open all day and just beautiful light.
Right.
Yeah, it's perfect working space. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
oops, here my cat's coming to say hello.
Oh, what was her name again?
Her name is Frida.
Oh, right. How could I
We saw
forget?
her Instagram debut here.
Yeah. Instagram famous cats. They're a thing.
So, have you been thinking about exploring any new mediums or any new methods of creating during this time? I know a lot of people have been like experimenting with new projects or with their practice. I'm always curious about that.
Yeah. Earlier this year, I was feeling inspired, if you could call it that, to create a work that was like a glisse print with
Mm-hmm.
like a screen print over top of it. And I don't really know, like it's so, I didn't like go to art school or anything, and I don't know, I'm currently not working with any galleries or like have representation of any kind. So I've mostly sold my works on my own over the last like maybe 6 years now. So, and that's kind of fit into like one, like kind of like a nest of where it has context and makes sense. And kind of as I have been along with my weaving, considering the really important aspects of it, I've been drawn a bit more to other ways than the object. Because I think with the object, a lot of the times, what I really value and what's really important about it is mist. Even though I love the act of creating those pieces and the kind of like place they can hold in a way, like this is a bit of a just a small sidebar of some perspective on my feelings towards artworks and the evolution, I guess, if you could call it that, of our people's artworks. I think sometimes it's certain people and the work they create are here to like anchor energy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think others are here to be catalysts for change, and the expansion of it. And one would hope that there's a firm understanding and grasp of one's own culture and how it fits into the world before you go about making big changes to things, you know?
Right.
Because, yeah, it's just kind of this like clashing of like a worldview that had been really impacted by colonization and what that was, because other than the odd person who still has a legacy of like an oral history or a historian in their family or in a tribe, a lot of it is coming from books and what was written down, which can be problematic at times. So, but I think there is some really, through some of the work that I've been able to do, either with teachers that have shared with me or working with materials that have been really powerful parts of our art and history as Northwest Coast people. I think there's core aspects of that have their own language and their own message and their own impact that they have on the individual. And part of our job, I think, is to carry those. For me, I feel like I should be carrying aspects of that and finding ways to translate it into new mediums of communication
Right.
today. So I'm kind of excited about those possibilities. So we've been talking with the Dark Skies project possibly about doing like more of like an immersive experience or installation.
Okay.
And I've been really, I guess just recently I've been really pondering over the question of the why of making, like why do we create, and why are the pieces that we want to bring into the world, what is their role and why are they here? So sometimes now when I'm reflecting on that, I find it really motivating and a real core concept that I want to kind of dig into and explore a bit more. I think part of it came up with the why of working with Making Culture Lab and replacing the original woven robe with a digitized version of it. The why of that was because I wanted the robe to come home to be used, because it had been out kind of traveling for about 6 years, 5 or 6 years. It had just been going from institution to institution, being shown. And that was a really big part of why I wanted to create the piece too was because I wanted to share with a broader audience. So it was good in that way. But then there was a point where I realized I don't want to just have this piece out in the world. It hasn't really been used at home yet. Mm-hmm. And our family hasn't had many feasts or potluck. We haven't had any potlatches. We've had 2 feasts in the last 10 years. So we're still like struggling to, bring our family back together in that ceremonial context. Right. So I wanted it to be present for that event. And for me, that gave a really firm grounding for creating something that could stand in for the original in a museum space. Mm-hmm. And I guess a museum space in general too, there's such a big conversation around that. The difference between anthropology museums and art museums, I think is mm-hmm. an interesting one. And then the history is tied to both. I find it very confusing to navigate right. that conversation and the role that my work has in the world. So anyway, when we were talking about expanding on the digital version or the animated version of Sky Blanket and making it more of an immersive installation, it was a question of, Kate Hennessy asked me, what's significant about having this piece on the Haida Gwaii at this institution. And so like the museums or cultural centers that have been created as an aspect of the repatriation process. So there's the Umista Cultural Center, which was created to house the potlatch collection that came back from all over the world. And then there's a big aspect of that as well with the Haida Heritage Center. So that's something that functions in our community, I think, in a really healthy way. A lot of them are run by our own people. And so to me, that is a very different place than an anthropology museum or an art museum. That's something that came into existence for the reason being for our ancestral works to come home and have a safe space to be cared for. And so I felt like having, the original Sky Blanket shown there is a really good thing. But as I step into maybe starting to explore other mediums of expression, it's never something that I want to see people in the communities that I have relationships with or come from not be able to connect with it. Because I think sometimes, when we go through art schools, or I don't go through art school, but when Native people are going through art schools, we're getting churned through a system in a way and end up making art that maybe fits into the broader art world in a more, or has more exploring in it. Mm-hmm. But it's not always something that people in our own communities can understand and connect with. And I think that's really problematic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a tough balance even for museum scholarship or, anything that has to do with our cultural material and the relationship to these institutions. It's there's such a balance between, navigating those non-native spaces, but then balancing it with something that is accessible to your own community. So I always appreciate those. I feel like we've had a lot of conversations about that, that topic in relation to your work. And it's interesting to see, I feel like, especially with Northwest Coast pieces, some items being returned and replaced with either digital versions of whatever that object might be, or contemporary, artist created replica. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you were going to be doing some curating. I'm curious about if you can talk a little bit about that and what it's like to step into this other role.
I feel like it's a bit of a learning process so far, and it's been a really slow process just with COVID and everything. But I guess the opportunity came about because I had an artist residency, I think maybe 5 years ago, in 2015 or so, at the Rietberg Museum in Switzerland. And the relationships that I formed there were really positive. And, last year, a couple of the different people from the museum and the university there came through, and they're kind of talking about having a show on the Northwest Coast. And because the curator there his focus has been mostly in South America and Peru. I did my best to like introduce them to people I thought who had important voices and some great art on the coast, and visited a couple communities, and and then have been helping put together the team of people who I think would work well together and be able to represent. Because I think, I told them I thought a show on the entire Northwest Coast is a huge, huge undertaking, and it's maybe too broad to focus on. So, just stepping into that part of the role, I guess, of helping build the team. And then, so it'll be new things. So after that, I've had some small experiences working with the Bill Reed Gallery on the shows that they've had with me. So there was 2 that I was involved with there. They're very small, and it gave me a really huge appreciation for the work that curators do. And it feels like this one could be a really great opportunity to both learn and share, because it's nice to feel as though, even though I don't have the hands-on experience with things, that some people are seeing the value in some of the ideas that I have, and that's, I think, unexpected but promising. So so we'll see.
No, that's really great.
Yeah.
I think it's so wonderful when museums and galleries incorporate artist perspectives, because like they really do offer a lot of different insight into the work and the relationship between different works. And so I'm really excited to see what comes of your curatorial experiences.
Yeah, I'll be sure to let you know how it happens. This one's supposed to be a couple years down the road, and pending on COVID stuff, but if it's even possible. But I'm sure by then we'll have stuff figured out.
Yes.
I hope.
Just a quick note to the audience: if you have any questions for Meghann, feel free to type them in the little comment box, and I'll be sure to read them out to her.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you are working on rescheduling your research fellowship, I believe it is, with the Smithsonian. Is that something that you're hoping to do in this next year, in 2021?
Yeah. So we're aiming for June and July.
Okay.
And if it isn't possible, then we just reschedule again down the road.
Right.
So I guess I just still have to stay in the system with the funds allocated. So I just have to keep rebooking and hoping that that it works out.
Right.
Yeah, they did offer the opportunity to see if I could go through an approval process to do it remotely and online. But I think that everybody I talked to, we all kind of agreed that kind of defeats the whole reason for getting the fellowship. If you want to be there and see the works in person, and such a great opportunity because there's such massive collections in both places with Chilkat weaving. And yeah, it seems like it'll be a really special trip when it's able to happen.
So do you already have like the items in mind that you are hoping to research, or do you will you get the opportunity to do some exploring of their collection once you get there?
Yeah. So I've got the days booked, and I've got the files with all of the collection. I haven't selected the exact works yet.
Okay, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I think I just want to be mindful of your time here, but I would love to know about any maybe other online programming or exhibitions that we should keep our eye out for that are coming up in the near future.
Yeah. So that show I was talking about with Toronto Indigenous Fashion Week, that one, they've actually partnered with the native artist named, I've never met her or I wasn't aware of her work, but her name's Skawanati. And she has a digital, like a gallery called Abtech in Second Life. So she offered to host the show on that platform. So I'm just learning about it. It seems like there's some problem, like very strange stuff about Second Life as a platform, but it's going to be kind of an interesting exploration to see what that feels like.
Right.
It is an option, I guess, in this new world, but I don't know if I feel good about that platform in particular.
Right.
Yeah, because I think to view it, then you have to make your own avatar and sign up for it, and then go into the space kind of
Oh,
thing.
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and so we'll have like the Mountain Goat Wool T-shirt will be digitized in that
Okay.
show, and yeah, yeah. But it's a great group of people, and hopefully the show happens in person one time. But it's a good alternative, at least.
Right.
Yeah, so that should be coming up like end of this year or maybe early next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm just curious about, okay, so you said that they are going to be digitizing your shirt. How is that done? Is it like 3D scanned or is it done just through photographs?
We're having a meeting tomorrow actually about it. And I think they can do a rendering based just on a photograph if it's a flat object for on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But there are, I mean, with the robe, what we did with that one, it was like a laser scanner
Mm-hmm.
that we did. And then the other thing we did with it was took like hundreds of photos all
Oh,
around the object, so
mm-hmm.
photogrammetry.
Right.
Those were pretty involved. So I think they have their own team over there, and I'm hoping we'll just be able to capture the image or what they need here and then send that file to them for their team to do the rendering aspect.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's really weird.
I know it is. It's so interesting. Like all of these, I mean, I guess they aren't new ways of doing things. People have been working on this for a while, but it's just interesting how many different institutions and individuals are taking advantage of these different ways of doing things digitally. So,
Hmm. I'm
um,
just gonna, I wasn't smart and I didn't charge my phone entirely, so I have to take my headphones off. I hope it's gonna, okay. Let me know if this is all right. Or...
yeah, it's your audio seems to be working fine.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I
Let's
didn't
see, we
want
had
to
two questions
no.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Someone asked, I'm curious, do you, Megan, also or focus solely on your art, or do you also support yourself with other work?
Um, well, since 2010, and just doing art, it's been supplemented a bit. Yeah. Maybe not the direct sale of art, but the first year that I stopped, like I was snowboarding before and commercial fishing, and I stopped doing both of those in 2010 for
Mm-hmm.
like an income. So I've been supported a few different times over the last 10 years with either applying to Canada Arts Council for
Mm-hmm.
support for project or the BC Arts Council. And then there's been, the small little trickles of like exhibition fees that come in,
Mm-hmm.
and more and more like speaking engagements have come up,
Right.
which is good. And what else? Yeah, so and then the odd, like maybe I sell maybe between 1 and 3 pieces a year, which isn't very much, but I don't make that much
Mm-hmm.
either. Um,
Right.
and they're all quite labor intensive, but this will be an interesting year. I feel like the first years of my practice was a certain way, and the last few years it's been kind of drifting.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you. Let's.
Sorry, you were cutting out a bit.
Oh. Oh. Okay. Sorry, my Wi-Fi might not be the best here. One more question here, or actually two more questions. Can you talk about what sparked the maker and creator in you?
Yeah, that's, I guess, yeah, this is like whenever I feel strange in the world, I'm always very grounded by that reason of why I started weaving. And it was because I spent a lot of time on the inside passage of the Northwest Coast, and um, I really enjoyed harvesting wild foods. So there was a period of about 4 or 5 years before I started weaving, just of spending a lot of time with plants and in the forest and harvesting. And I would say I have a much more strong, in the beginning, I had a stronger interest in botany rather than art. Just that relationship with people and animals. So I've been introduced to various types of weaving through my teachers that I've worked with and through my own understanding of things that resulted from that time spent on the land. Felicia?
Great. Yes, sorry, am I cutting out again here?
Felicia?
Oh no. Can you hear me? Sorry, everyone. Let's see, I might disconnect Megan and then try and reconnect here. Oh no. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Let me just try and reconnect you here, Megan. Okay, I think we're back.
Okay.
Perfect. Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi isn't super good at the moment, but I think everything looks a little clearer now.
Okay, good.
Okay, I think, okay, two more questions and then hopefully the Wi-Fi bears with us.
Okay.
So someone asked, do you create art for your people, meaning for your own traditional cultural practices, or is it mainly work done to help educate non-Indigenous people about your culture?
I think those two things can be one and the same in a perfect world. I think early on, part of the teachings that some of my teachers gave me was that it's important to gift your first work. So I've gifted a lot of firsts within my own family, and then that's been really important. I think the biggest one was in 2014, I think, no, 2012 maybe. I gifted a full-size chief's robe upon Haida to our opposite clan, who was taking a chieftainship. And yeah, so I think having a foundation and knowing as I progress through the world and in my career that I've done my small part to contribute to the revitalization of our culture has been really important. And then some of the other pieces, like the sky blanket piece, was created with the intention of sharing broadly and sharing maybe the origins of starting to think about how some of those ideas can be articulated and translated into the world today. So I had a really interesting time quite a few years ago at the Banff Center, and was a part of an international Indigenous artist residency. And I was the only person in that place that hadn't gone through art school. And it was pretty shocking to see some of the ways that traditional art forms were viewed, and really gave me a strong sense of needing to both stand strong for the future to represent some of those more traditional art forms, but also find new ways to translate those things because of how different the world is that we are in today.
That makes sense. All right, and then we had one more question that I missed earlier. It was Ian. He was asking if you had recently done a skate or skateboard project. He might have seen it on Instagram.
can't, you cut out for that bit.
Okay, I missed a question earlier. Ian asked if you had recently also done a skateboard or skate project.
Nope,
Oh.
not recently. Yeah, not recently. The Border X show has been going on since I don't know when, quite a while, but that one's in Nanaimo right now at the Nanaimo Art Gallery.
Okay.
But that's a show that my friend James curated,
Okay.
and it's on skateboarding, snowboarding. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, on that note, and just to close out here, would you be able to share the best way to stay up to date with your work and current and future projects? Is it your website, social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram mostly. My name, except with instead of two, well, everybody's on Instagram now, so they know. Meghann O'Brien, two A's instead of two N's on the end of it. And then I have a blog I do once in a while. That's just meghannO'Brien.com.
Okay.
And I think there's links to it through my Instagram.
Okay, great. And I'll be posting this. Oh, sorry. I'll be posting this on YouTube, and I'll include links to your blog and then also your social media handles. And you can share this via YouTube or Instagram. So, yeah, that should be up a little bit later this evening.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It's been very lovely to catch up, and I hope that you can come back to Santa Fe soon.
Me too. Nice to see you and have a chat.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.